Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Name on the Trophy, the Manchester United podcast and YouTube show where we chat all things United. And at the moment, it's all things good for United after the victory over City in the Manchester Derby. My name's Dominic Booth. I'm delighted to be joined by football broadcasting royalty in the shape of Jordan Jarrett-Bryan, Channel 4, Guardian Football Weekly, Talk Sport. You will have heard his dulcet tones over your airwaves, and I'm pleased to get him on. Jordan, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that lovely intro. I mean, royalty might be a stretch, but hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Behind enemy lines on this one, though, Jordan, as well, aren't
Big
you?
time, big time.
As an Arsenal fan on this United podcast, but it's going to be an interesting week, isn't it? For sure, after the weekend's results.
It is. It is. I think it's shaping up to be an interesting season. Generally, I think at both ends and the middle, there's storylines all over the Premier League. And as much as I'll give my thoughts on United's title challenge in just a moment, it's kind of ramping up. I think United are making it more interesting with the run they're on right now. So yeah, I'm hugely excited. I think it's a big week. It's a big week as well. So yeah, let's get
for
into
sure.
it.
Yeah, we'll get into the meat and bones of the Manchester Derby to start with. Then Jordan, it was a game unlike the game earlier in the season at the Etihad, where City just completely blew United away, and it seemed like the two teams were so far apart in their development and their abilities, basically. And Ten Hag obviously only just starting in his role then, but this, although United had a little bit of luck, and we may well get into that as well, this was an altogether different United. It seemed like a completely more confident, better drilled, just a better United in pretty much every shape and form.
Well, I want to say that what's happening at Manchester United is mine as an Arsenal fan biggest nightmare. And there's a lot of jealousy I have because Arsenal had to endure, I mean, I'm being kind here, but 10 years, some would argue 15, but definitely 10 years of being a banter club. Yeah.
Yes.
We had 10 years where we were just, we were not only bad, we were the banter club. And so whenever I see another big club have difficult times, I intrinsically and instinctively want that club and that fan base to go for something similar. So you've been a banter club, I'd say, for about 5 years. You've been a bad club for 10, but you've been a banter club for 5. And the fact that you're now on the resurgence to becoming a serious club again annoys me because I want you to be a banter club for a few more years. I would have liked another couple of years where, you know, the likes of Villa and Leicester and Wolves would go to Old Trafford genuinely expecting to get minimum a points. But what Ten Hag has done, and this is why I rate Ten Hag so highly, is he's ended all that nonsense. He's cut through the nonsense in the face of banter club ownership, if you like. I think he's a top manager. He's a serious operator, and I think he's doing a really, really good job in making Man United, at the bare minimum, even we talk about whether they're going to win trophies, whether they're going to be one of the best teams in the next couple of years. We can discuss that. But at the bare minimum, what he's done is he's made Man United respectable again. I think some teams can still feel they can go to Old Trafford and get a point and outplay United. There's work to be done there. But I think you'd gone past being a bad club. I think when I talk about a banter club, and Arsenal had this for many years as well, is no one respected you. Nobody respected you. And I mean in your own house. And I think what he's done, if he does nothing else this season, and you finish now where you currently are, at the bare minimum, he's got you a club that actually teams go to Old Trafford and know we're going to have a game here. Do you know what I mean? I think that is
absolutely.
That, I think is probably the single biggest in amongst a list of achievements. That for me is so far the single biggest achievement I think Ten Hag has achieved at United so far.
Yeah, and you can't do that without big results like this, right? It was all very well that 7-8 game winning run that United run before the derby. You know, Charlton were part of that run, Burnley were part of that run, Bournemouth, Everton. These are teams United should be putting away, even if they are in a banter era, if we want to term it that way. You know, United did put those teams away under, pretty desperate regimes in the past few years, but this was the acid test. And Ten Hag's had a couple now where you do think you have to sit up and think they're actually serious. And the signings of the likes of Casemiro, Varane coming in, after a tricky first season and establishing himself, these are the signs, these are the sort of key pillars of the Ten Hag regime. And United prove that they are serious with a performance against City that isn't just based on luck and just smashing and grabbing on the counter attack. It's a proper performance.
So on before I get to the performance on the weekend, I think one of the questions as a United fan that would, I wouldn't say sober you up, but maybe kind of bring a bit of realism is how many teams have Man United beaten this season when they're on form?
Yeah,
and I would
it's
say
still a good question.
you lost to Brentford when they were on form. You lost to Brighton, albeit at the start of the season when they were playing well. They've continued playing really well. You didn't beat Newcastle at the Old Trafford. You beat my lot, Arsenal, who, apart from Arsenal, and that's a big scalp to have, to be fair. But how many teams have United beaten at their best? And look, though cliche, can only beat what's in front of you, but you beat a poor Liverpool team. You beat a poor Tottenham team. You drew when you probably should have won against a poor Chelsea team. So not to take those victories away from Old Trafford, from Ten Hag and Man United, but when City were on fire, they smashed you. And we'll get to the Arsenal game, I'm sure, in a minute. But you're playing a team now that is the best team in the country right now. In regards to the game on the weekend, the reason why I make that point is because I feel like you beat a Man City team who aren't poor. Man City are not poor. They're not necessarily in poor form, but they're not the Man City of last year.
Yeah.
Now, granted, in a derby, just win the game, especially at home. Just win. That's what matters. Just win the game, and you won the game. And I do have a lot of credit for United in not only winning the game, but coming from 1-0 down to win the game. Because in previous years, you lose that game 2-3-1 afterwards. You just kind of still feel sorry for yourselves. You capitulate. You didn't do that. However, I think whilst I praise United for winning the game, I guess the question I would ask you is, did the bet over 90 minutes, did the better team win the game?
Possibly not, but when did the better team really ever win the game against Manchester City with the style of football that they play and the amount of possession they're going to have? And, you know, might as well get into the meat and bones of the game now, because I thought that Ten Hag set his team up in a smart fashion. And he's often been quite idealistic with his United teams. Eriksen in that deeper role, no one really thought that Eriksen was going to play as United's deep line midfielder next to Casemiro. But in this game, he changed it. He put Fred in. Fernandes was sacrificed out wide. It was a bit more pragmatic than I think Ten Hag would probably want to be. But that's just smart when you're playing against Pep Guardiola and City, even in the form that they're in, which isn't the best.
I agree. When you're trying to build something and build a team, you have to park your ideals. He's clearly got an idea of how he wants this Man United team to be, but he obviously is intelligent enough to realize that I can't do that at this moment. So where he's succeeding, where I think Van Gaal failed, was Van Gaal said, no, this is how I play football. This is how my team is going to play. And rather than try to get the players in, ergo Arteta, and to a degree Ten Hag, to play that and be patient, Van Gaal went the other way and said, no, the players I have to change.
You play my way, yeah.
You play my way. And it's like asking, a cockerel to bark. It's like, cockerels don't bark. What are you doing? You can try and train a cockerel to bark, but you'll be training it for a long time. Do you know what I mean? So I think Ten Hag has been very, very pragmatic in, this is what I've got. I don't want to play this football. I don't believe for 1 second that Ten Hag is enjoying this Man United football. He's not enjoying it at all. But he realizes that he's at a massive club that will be defined ultimately by results. And if you can get results in the short term, you garner the confidence of the players, the board, and the fan base. That gives you time to then bring in your players and bring in how you do want to play. So I think he set the team up in a way that I don't respect, because I don't think big teams, especially at home, sitting deep and countering, which I think was still remnants of your performance, is how big teams should play. However, he would counter that by saying, yeah, but Jordan, we won the game. We won the game. And in the short term, that is all that matters. So I rate it. I'm not sure the better team did win the game, but I think the manager that did what he had to do to win the game came out victorious. And for that, fair play.
Yeah, and United fans, the majority of United fans accepted there was an element of fortune. that Bruno Fernandes goal, in my view, shouldn't have stood. And maybe some United fans will rail against that. And they said
stand.
a lot of them were saying, "You think it should stand?"
It should stand. It should stand.
Wow. Okay.
In accordance to the rules, it's a legitimate goal. I think we've got, as pundits and as journalists and as football fans, we all do this. We conflate what we think the rules should be with what the rules actually are. According to the rules, now we'll get to a second whether we think the rules are right or dumb or not. But according to the rules that everyone agrees to at the start of the season, according to the rules, according to the rules, that goal was legitimate. It was legitimate according to the rules. Now,
the rules may well be wrong. Then, I think
there you go. That's where I agree. That's where I'm going to. Our opinion could be that the rules are dumb. The rule is a dumb rule. That should never be a goal. But in accordance to the rule book, the goal is legitimate. Rashford and Fernandes did nothing wrong in accordance to the law, in accordance to the rules. We can get emotional and say, if I was writing the rule book, that rule wouldn't be in existence. I agree. If I wrote the rules for IFAB, that rule would not be in existence. Therefore, the goal would be ruled out. But you wasn't lucky because you didn't do anything wrong. You did what you were meant to do. So
no, my next point was going to be that I thought United created better chances, and they may not have dominated the ball, they may not have dominated the game, but I thought they created the better chances. They looked more of a threat than City, and that may well speak to more what City are doing at the moment. They seem to be going through a patch where they're just not creating enough, and Haaland isn't in the game, and he wasn't in the game, and Fred man-marked Kevin De Bruyne out of the game as well, apart from one moment, and that moment conjured up the City goal. So United didn't dominate the game. The better team, I'm still debating whether I think the better team won, because I think the better team in a football match is who comes closest to scoring a goal more of the time. That's a very simple definition of that. So United fans can feel justifiable in 3 points that was warranted. And Ten Hag's, you might be right. Ten Hag may not be happy about what he's doing at the moment, but he learnt to his cost earlier in the season at Brentford. If he sticks to his ideals, some of the players aren't capable of playing that way.
If he'd have carried on in that way, he would have been under the pressure that Potter's under right now.
Yeah,
and the talk would have been, will Ten Hag finish the season? That would have been the talk. That would have been the talk. So he realized at a big club, ideals are important. Standards are essential. But what trumps both of those things at a big club is results. And you've got to play the long game. You've got to sacrifice your principles for now to ultimately get in, to get to where you want to get to. So I'm asking the question to be a bit provocative, but I'm not sure. I'm back and forth on if the better team won. But at the end of the day, you won the game. And City didn't do enough to win the game. Did they deserve to lose the game? No. I think a draw would have been a fair result, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But you got the win, so who cares?
Exactly. But it wasn't, in my view. Exactly. Yeah, this is a United podcast, so it's absolutely fine. And it benefited Arsenal anyway, in a way. Although we'll get on to how worried Arsenal are about United's title chances. In my view, I want to get your opinion on this, because I chatted to a couple of United fans about this after the game. I didn't think it was a Solskjaer style win, because Solskjaer, when he was in charge, didn't really have those ideals that we're talking about, and was happy to just sit back, home or away against City, play on the counter-attack. Fred and McTominay running up and down, shutting the doors on City's players and smashing and grabbing mainly through Rashford. On the surface, this looks a little bit like that, but I think it was a bit better than that, because I think that some of the performances, Casemiro for one, Bruno Fernandes more involved than he'd been. Eriksen, I thought, was good, if a little passive. These are players that wouldn't have starred really in a Solskjaer style win over City.
I wonder if they would have, though. I wonder if the difference. I agree with you that there was a slight difference between what Ten Hag was doing, what Solskjaer was doing. But I wonder if the difference isn't so much in intent from the managers, but the difference is the players at the disposal. Ten Hag has got ball players in the middle of the park that want to be on the ball and want to pass forward. Solskjaer had McTominay and Fred, who don't have that vision going forward to be able to see a pass. So they instinctively probably pass sideways or backwards to keep the ball. So it's a question that I guess we'll never know. But I think the difference in the styles isn't necessarily because Solskjaer maybe wanted to be a bit of a, I was going to swear then, but be a bit of a,
you absolutely can.
A pussy.
Okay.
Or if actually, no, he wanted to be progressive, but to my point earlier on, just didn't have the tools. He wanted to make a Michelin star, chicken and vegetables, but he's doing it with, Lidl, although people tell me Lidl's actually is underrated food, but he's doing it with like, another supermarket brand that's not Waitrose or Marks and Spencer's type chicken. He's doing it with resources that aren't as good as what Casemiro has. So I think that he's getting that balance correct of you're defensively very, very sound, but you do offer something going forward as well. I think that you need to dominate games more. I think the one thing United still don't do is dominate games. You don't dominate any game that I've seen. Even against some of the smaller teams, you have patches, but all the wins that I've seen United have this season, 90% of them are through either counter-attacking football or bits of magic from someone. I don't see United have a 20-minute period where you've got your foot on the neck of the opponent. I don't see that when they're penned in. You don't dominate the ball in the way that I think big clubs do. And if you want to be ultimately a Premier League winning team again, you have to go back to being a dominant team. You have to control games. United don't control games.
No, and this run is momentum, right? And it's confidence in the veins of these players who previously under Rangnick last year, it's pretty much the same group of players, bar a couple of signings in the summer. The likes of Rashford and Fernandes were nowhere near the form they're showing now last year, and this is not particularly sophisticated tactics that's prompted this difference and turnaround in form. It's confidence, right? And Ten Hag has put that back into them over the course of this run. Like with what we were saying, pragmatic football, winning football. And I think the domination of games, yeah, that is still a problem. I think that's still a big problem at United. And I've been concerned going to Old Trafford recently where Bournemouth are having a 10-minute spell, raining shots down on goal, and Everton are looking dangerous. And these are poor sides. Yeah. United should be putting them away. And United still look, like you say, they just don't pen teams in like City do at their best under Pep,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with a Bournemouth or an Everton having a 10-minute period. Even the crap teams will have a 10-minute period where they kind of have their time. But that has to be slapped down by your 30-minute periods where you're battering them and you score 2 goals. That has to be counted. Every team has a period. I don't have an issue with a small team having a period of the game. But I think what's got to happen is United are going to say, okay, you've had your 10 minutes, you've not scored. Now it's our turn. Yeah, we've got better players and we're at home. We're gonna pen you in for 20 minutes now, and we're gonna score at least 1 goal in that 20-minute period. So that's what I think United need to work on. There's nothing wrong with United letting in a goal or being on the ropes for a small period of time. It's okay, but when you have the ball, when you're on top, is it a 5-minute period? Is it a couple of counters, or is it one of those things where they say the goal's coming? The goal's coming. At no point during that game on the weekend did I say the goal's coming. The goal's coming. I couldn't see that. It was a instinctive counter, or it was a bit of magic that ultimately got the goals, because you got the players to do that. But that doesn't win titles. That brand of football may get you top 4. It doesn't win you titles.
No, and that's probably what we were coming on to next, really, in talking about whether this United team are actually ready for not even winning the title, pushing or challenging for the title, because I personally don't think they are. And I think that it might be a stretch and it might overexcite the fan base a little bit too much. Say if United were to win the next 2 games, Palace and Arsenal this week, obviously that Arsenal one is absolutely massive. Probably expect them to beat Palace, but no walk in the park away at Selhurst Park. I just think that this is a little bit too soon in United's development under Ten Hag for title talk to be coming. And United fans are United fans. There's so many of us dotted around social media. There's so many theories and there's so much excitement after a win over City that maybe it's inevitable. The situation on the table looks promising for a title challenge, but for me, there are too many gaps in this side. And number 9, Anthony Martial, is probably top of that list. Talked about it on this podcast before. I'm still not sure about Anthony. There's still an issue, maybe at right back, Wan-Bissaka or Dalot. there's still a few gaps in this side. Goalkeeper again, for them to become a title-winning outfit at this moment, in my view. Would you agree with that?
100%. I don't think United in the title race. And I know that's going to sound like craziness, or crazy to United fans. But I think a lot of people just, and you define title race differently, right? Everyone kind of has their definition of what is a title contending team. So most people are saying United in the title race. They look at the table and they see United 1 point off City and say, well, if City in the title race, why aren't we? Or they look at Arsenal and say, are you currently 9 points behind us or 8 points behind us?
It's City at 8 points and United at 9 points.
And 9,
yeah,
right. So people think, well, if we beat Palace in midweek, that's 6 points behind Arsenal. If we then somehow beat Arsenal, that's 3 points. Of course, we're in a title race. My definition of a title race is, can you get to when it? Can you look ahead, think ahead? So when it really matters, which I say is like 10 games to go. So back end of March time this year, because the season is extended. Can you look into the future and really see United in that mix of lifting a Premier League title this season with 10 games to go? I just don't see it. I don't see it because some of the reasons you flagged. Martial, nah, you should have sold Martial 3 years ago, in my opinion. He clearly isn't the guy. He will score goals, he's a good player, but he's not the guy. Anthony, I'm not having Anthony. This left foot flicky nonsense that you guys get excited about. Oh, he did something great. No, he didn't beat
What about
anybody.
that turn though? That turn's so good to watch.
Oh man, it's just Man United, that his debut against Arsenal infuriated me, because all the Man United fan base were like, "Oh, he was great. He scored a good goal. He flicked his foot a few times, but he doesn't do anything. Doesn't, like, flicking the foot isn't a skill. That's like,
no. The penny is starting to drop a little bit with fans on Anthony, and
he's a show pony, and he's the worst type of show pony. He's a show pony that, for me, people gas him up, and it enables him to do it even more. And I'm like, nah, I've seen this before. It's another Depay. I'm not having him anyway. so I'm not having him again. David De Gea, I'm still not convinced by him as a Premier League winning goalkeeper now. I think he's won one Prem before, hasn't he? He has won one Prem.
At the start of his career when Ferguson was in charge. Right. Yeah.
I'm not having him. And Rashford, I still feel you are a Marcus Rashford injury away. I know you've brought in Weghorst, who, by the way, I think is a good signing. I think you are a Marcus Rashford injury away from really falling off. I just don't see United, when the Europa League kicks in, if you knock out Barca, you're in the meat and guts of the Europa League, FA Cup, and a title challenge. I don't see you being there then. That's not me that's not me hating or being jealous of your rise. I just think it's a year and a half, 2 years too early. I don't think it's a bit like Newcastle. The reason why I have doubts Newcastle even finishing the top 4 is because everyone at Newcastle right now is playing an 8 or a 9 out of 10. That is not sustainable. It's not sustainable that every player in your team is playing worst case 7 out of 10. When 3 players drop to a 5, you'll see Newcastle dip. You'll see them dip. But right now, everyone is playing 8 out of 10. That's a high level to maintain. And I think it's a similar thing with United. Everyone is playing at a high level, and I'm just not sure it's maintainable. And people say, okay, well, why can Arsenal do it? Because Arsenal are 3 years into their process. You are 6 months into yours. Arsenal, we've gone through the pain. We know what Arteta wants. We've got our team pretty much. So that's the reason why I don't have United in a title race. However, beat Palace on Saturday, in the week, beat Arsenal next week, and then maybe I might have to reevaluate my prediction. Maybe I might have to, because 3 points, fair enough. You're literally within a win of beating Arsenal, who still have got to play City twice, go to Anfield. You've got Chelsea. We've got some big teams to still to play. I just, at this stage now, when we're recording this podcast, I still don't believe that you are. These words might come back to haunt me, but I don't think they will. But
I'll clip that up and post on social media.
Of course you are. I just think I think it's still a year, maybe 2, too early. City may still have a run. I'd put City ahead of you guys of title winners in terms of if I had to put my house on it, because despite their form being a little bit meh, they've got the players, the manager, and the pedigree to turn this around. I'm just not sure United are ready yet. But United fans should be excited, because you've got a manager there that is doing good things, and you're clearly on the correct trajectory. I just don't think. I think there's at least 2 teams that I would think are better suited to finish as winners than you guys are.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it has to be sustained. And like you say, we could have a very different conversation in a week's time. And if United do start to really dominate those smaller teams like we talked about, and they can maybe, I think that you're absolutely right about Rashford. I think that United are hanging their hat on Rashford way too much at the moment. And 9 consecutive home goals that he's scored. I think it's equaled a record from 1950s and the Busby Babes. This is really outstanding, and I mean that in the terms of it's a little bit of an anomaly from Rashford. He's playing absolutely wonderful football, but is it sustainable?
He went down twice on Saturday. Now
he would have been hauled off. It would anybody else. I think any other player.
I think you're right, and I think if he was hauled off, do you win that game?
Probably not. Probably not. Almost certainly not, because City had started to turn the screw by that point anyway, and United had started very well. But all their danger was coming through Rashford. The only bright spot was when Garnacho came on, and that changed it again. Yes. Martial was pretty ineffective down the middle. He put Anthony down the middle for a bit, but he did. Garnacho has to play more for me, because I think he's ready. He's absolutely ready. And Ten Hag's been a bit reticent. I think there's been 1 or 2 concerns about Garnacho's attitude behind the scenes.
Yes.
But you look at the player that was twisting Nathan Ake's blood on the weekend, and you think he's got to play in the biggest games. He's just a huge threat.
I think the sell of the club is quite key as well, because the quicker you can get that resolved, if that can be resolved by the end of the season, and you'd like to think that'll be resolved in the next couple of months, but if you can get that done, and get the person a good owner in, I think that sets you up for the summer to really then be excited and really look to challenging next year, because you're probably only 3 or 4 players away from having a title challenging squad. I agree. I think you need a couple of strikers. I think you need that Malacia left back guy, he looks good. Dallo right back, I think he's good. You got 2 good centre backs. I think Maguire will be moved on in the summer. I think Lindelof will be moved on in the summer as well. If you can get a 3rd centre back in and get Sancho firing, I think you've got a squad there that can definitely next year compete. So I think there's the sale of the club, I think, is key as well. If you can get that monkey off your back, you don't want that dragging into the summer or to next season. I think you're rocking and rolling. I just think this year, again, you're operating at a very high level, and I just question, is it sustainable?
Yeah, well, I tweeted at the start of the Ten Hag regime, and it's been made to look really foolish already. I tweeted, let the guy finish 7th or 8th. Just let him do his thing for a year. It's not really feasible at United because of those factors that we discussed, because of the pressure, because of the need for results. It hasn't turned out that way. It looks like top 4 in one of the domestic cups is a realistic ask now. Semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, still in the other 2, the Europa and the FA Cup, and top 4 looks, I think, nailed on now.
So let me ask you, if I offered you,
here we go.
If I offered you 4th and the League Cup, would you take that
right now?
Right now, over if I said to you, play the season out now and see how it goes? Which option would you take?
Play it out. I think play it out.
Oh, you think you could potentially get more than 4th in the League Cup?
I think United are the 3rd best side in the league, so I think 4th is a downgrade from that. I think United have shown now over a few weeks and months that they're the 3rd best team in the Premier League this season, at least.
Better than Newcastle?
Yeah, Newcastle, if you're talking about teams that don't dominate games, Newcastle don't dominate games. They're a defense-first side, shown by their results recently: 1-0, 1-0, 0-0, 0-0.
But the difference is, and Newcastle fans hate me for saying this, and I just don't care, they're not a big club. They're not a big club.
That's a discussion for another. We could be here for another half hour talking about that.
They're not a big club, so I don't think it's a problem them being the defensive team. I think United, to be defensive, is embarrassing. I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying they can get away with playing that way because they're not a big club. You're a big club.
Yep. Yeah. It's completely different expectations from where Newcastle have been, though. Newcastle are on an absolute ride at the moment, and talk about momentum, they've got absolutely bags of it. But I think United are a much better side than Newcastle, and we're prepared for that to be clipped up and put on social media, and I think that'll be proven for the season. I think United can get 3rd at at least, and they're in 3 cups that they've got a decent chance of winning at least one of them. So yeah, let the football manager simulator play out and see what it comes up at the end of the season. In terms of the Arsenal game on the weekend,
yes, let's get to it.
It's going to be, how different is it going to be to that game at Old Trafford? Because I was there at that 3-1 win for United, which was not a 3-1 90 minutes. Arsenal were very good. I thought played some really good stuff as they've done all year.
Let's get to it. We were better. People talk about, I think a draw was a fair result. I disagree.
Better, but lost the game comfortably.
No, we did, and I think it's probably the one, maybe two. There's been 2 examples this year where Mikel Arteta's management, he's got it wrong. He got it wrong in the PSV away game. Was it the away game? I think it was the away game. Tactically, he got them all wrong. And I think in the latter part of the United game, he got it wrong. When we equalized in that game, he did not have to change it. He panicked. And he threw everybody forward trying to win the game. We had the momentum at that point. We would have won that game had I think he changed it at like 70 minutes. It's like, bro, there's 20 minutes left. Just let them play out this momentum and see if they can get the second as it is. And he panicked. Anyway, I think, to answer your question, how would it play out? I think it'll be the exact same as the game at Old Trafford. The difference will be the home factor.
Okay.
I think the difference will be the home factor. I think United will do what they did at the reverse game. I think Arsenal will do what they did in the reverse game. I just think you're coming to the Emirates, and I think that will be the defining. I actually think we'll slap you up. I think if you perform as you performed on Saturday, against us this Saturday, I think it's a 3-1, 4-1. I think we beat you quite comfortably. I don't think United are as good as many people think they are. I think you've come a long way, but I think people are suffering from recency bias. I think because you've been so bad for so long, this improvement is amplified.
Manchester United can't go on a 9-game winning run without it being amplified. They went under a similar run under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which is just completely built on vibes and a good feeling after Mourinho went, and everyone got really excited, including Ed Woodward gave Solskjaer a massive contract as the permanent manager. It always happens.
Yeah. I think Man United are a good team. I don't think you're a title contending team, despite what the table says. I think if Arsenal turn up, there's one winner here. I think if you play to your best and we play to our best, you don't win the game. Right now, we're in a zone. We are in a momentum. We are in a stage of our growth where I just think you have to do something special to beat us, especially at the Emirates. Do you know what I mean? So I think this is an Arsenal, and again, if this comes out after the Arsenal, we lose 3-1 on the weekend, this is going to look very embarrassing. But I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe that my team is the best team in the country, and to get anything from us, especially at the Emirates, I think you have to play well. Like I said, I don't think you should have got anything from us at Old Trafford. But so the Emirates, I just don't think anyone comes there and gets anything from us at the moment. So I think...
No, at the moment, you're completely right. You justified this. Arsenal, I can't believe I'm saying that. They are quite, by a distance at the moment, the best team in the country. And it's taken a long time for people to actually come to terms with that, hasn't it? It seems like until the last couple of weeks, everyone was saying, well, it's City's. It's City's to lose.
Well, you know what? I still think it is. I think the favourites to win the Premier League this season are still Man City. I'm not doing the whole self-deprecating...
Mind games,
No, I'm not doing that. I genuinely believe people need to respect pedigree. City are not the City of last year, granted. I agree. But people need to understand that City have chased down bigger leads than this against a better team. When they chased down Liverpool 2 years ago, it was a 14-point lead they chased down, and that Liverpool team was better than this Arsenal team. So I think people need to respect pedigree. Now, having said that, people keep saying, oh, they can go on a 10-game run, which is true, they can. But they're running out of games for that 10 game to start. Are they going to beat Spurs on the weekend and start it then? Maybe, maybe not. They've got us the weekend after. Do they start it then? Maybe not. They've then got Spurs again the week after that. So at some point, they're running out of games to start this 10-game winning run. So whilst I think City do have it in their locker to win 10 games in a row, I also feel that they're running out of games to start that as well. So I think that the smart money, if you put a gun to my head, who were Premier League champions in May, I would still lean towards City. However, You guys have to beat us on the weekend. Otherwise, I think we pull away.
Yeah, well, I think until a couple of weeks ago, I would have entirely agreed with you, but I just think the tide is turning a little bit now.
It is.
Maybe it is recency bias, as you say. But in terms of the United Arsenal game, I think devil's advocate with your theory that United are going to get smashed up. Obviously, I'll play devil's advocate to that. I do think United did set a good template against City of how to play against Arsenal. It's a similar,
I agree,
similar way that they can stop them. Stick Fred on Martin Odegaard, follow him around the pitch, play that similarly tight midfield, Casemiro sitting nice and deep, and just hope that it is on Rashford. We've got to hope, United have got to hope that Rashford is fit, firing, whatever injury he had doesn't come up again and flare up against Palace, and hope that Martial actually turns up a little bit more than he did, or maybe Garnacho starts and United can get at both Arsenal's fullbacks that way through Rashford and Garnacho on the break.
I actually think that man marking Odegaard with Fred would be a bad idea. I think that'd be a bad. We're too technically proficient in our passing and movement to fall for that. I think we'll just pass through you. You'll get popped, as they say. I think, and this is what Arteta needs to learn from, the template is what Newcastle did. I think what Newcastle did in that second half in particular, that is how you stop Arsenal. I think you bank in and you're disciplined positionally and you don't chase any one player. I think if you put Fred on Odegaard, it'll be the worst day for as a Man United fan. We will batter you because we'll find the holes. We will find the holes. Do you know what I mean? I think you're better off having Fred and Casemiro banking in and protecting like a box. So they're in front of whoever, Martinez or probably Martinez and
Varane
centre back and Varane or Shaw, whoever it may be, and protecting that lane. We don't score a lot of goals from crosses, so I would maybe give up the chance for us to cross. If you let Saka and Martinelli run at you, you have to double up on them, and you have to really double up on them. So I don't think man marking Odegaard is the thing to do. Another bit of advice: if Ten Hag is watching this podcast, I'm sure he will be.
Let's hope so.
I have no idea. I said this all the time. I have no idea. It happened under Poch, under Jose, under Nuno Espirito Santos, and Conte. I have no idea why Spurs continuously play us with two in midfield. They always play us with two in midfield, home and away. And I just don't understand. After 4 managers, they still do it. If you put just Fred and Casemiro in a 2-man midfield against us, again, you will get absolutely slapped. You have to match us up. Either match us up in the middle, or you have to go 3 up top. You have to go Rashford, Martial, and Garnacho, the all press, and stop the ball getting to Odegaard and Partey. You have to make it hard for those guys to receive the ball from the back line, or you've got to match. You can't play 2 midfield. You just can't. We batter Spurs every time doing it, and they never learn. And if you do the same thing, I think you're defensively more solid to deal with once we break that midfield. But what you don't want is us coming at your back line again and again and again and again, because eventually we will score.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. United's record at the Emirates is pretty dreadful in recent years, even when Arsenal were in those sort of turgid years. And United never seemed to get anything since the sort of early days of the Emirates when Fergie's teams had absolute field days, Ronaldo and Rooney and that. So I think there is a massive concern. I think United would take a draw now.
Of course, yeah.
It's not the result that fires title talk particularly, especially if City win, and maybe it keeps United in that little third place bracket that I spoke about.
Well, let me ask you: if you think that United are in a title race?
I think at the moment you have to say they are. At the moment you have to say they are.
Okay, so if you think they're in a title race, United have to win. A point's not enough. You have to beat us. You have to go there to win, and that's why I'm really fascinated to see how you set up, because the Palace game is relevant as well. Because if you win the Palace game, I am interested to see, does Ten Hag, 6 points behind Arsenal, now playing Arsenal, think we're in a title race, we have to beat them, therefore he sets up to beat Arsenal? Or does he think we'll take a point, we'll keep it 6 points, and we'll try and reel them in, hoping that City beat them once or twice? Do you know what I mean? If he thinks like you do, you're in a title race, that I'm fascinated to see how he then sets up. Does he take a point and play the long game, or does he think, but if we don't beat them, who is?
It's full circle in a way, isn't it? So the question we came back to: can United actually challenge for the title? Is it too soon? What does Ten Hag think? That it really comes down to what he really believes in his head. He looks at the players in front of them. He looks at the squad and its depth, which, as we said, a little bit thin. A lot of different fronts to be competing on over the next few weeks. Are United actually title contenders? And the jury is still out, I reckon, even in Ten Hag's mind.
I think that I have a feeling, especially if you beat Palace, I think he will go to win the game of the Emirates.
I hope so. I hope so.
And what I do as well, because I think he'll get slapped, but I'll respect him more for it. I respect him more if he goes to the Emirates, 6 points behind Arsenal, and sets up to win the game. As a non-United fan, if I take myself out of the Arsenal bubble, I'd be like, damn right, yeah, he's going for it. Now, I don't think as Jordan, you're in a title race, but as Ten Hag, he has to think that. Because United fans are conditioned as well to thinking, no matter what the situation is, we should always be in a title race. There's a little bit of entitlement in there. But I think United fans think, no matter the situation, we are Man United. We should be going to win every single game. Now, that's very idealistic, and I get that. That's big club standards. But equally, you may get slapped 4-0. But I think he will risk getting slapped 4-0 if it means the approach and the intent is of a big club, which is every game we go to win.
Yeah, well, I usually finish this podcast with predictions, but having said United are going to get slapped 4-0, I'm not sure I can finish on that sort of a tone. So we'll have to just wait and see how it plays out. Let's not do predictions because usually my guests are United fans as well. So, but it's been very nice to have a different angle on things and really assess where United are at. So yeah, Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure.
No, pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine, man. Just before you wrap, just so one final point. Because you got me in the mix now. Gary Neville, you said earlier on that you think the City loss was a benefit to Arsenal, and I heard Gary Neville made an interesting point about that. And actually, would Arsenal fans or Arsenal preferred City to win that? Because if City win the game, United definitely are out of the title race. That puts to bed United in any title race for me. And then you just got a straight duel with Man City with a 6-point lead or 5-point lead. It would have been. Whereas he said United winning the game is a problem for Arsenal because now you've got two teams still in the mix to fight. So I thought it was an interesting point. And when you mentioned that you think that the result on the weekend benefited Arsenal, he got me thinking about actually before the game, I wanted a draw. A draw was perfect for Arsenal.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one team to win, I probably would have chosen City to win the match. But the Arsenal fan base, I think, were hoping that United won it.
I think it's what you came back to, where you want City to lose as many points as possible because they are capable of going on that run to really win. So that's where I thought Arsenal
fear them more.
Yes, the Arsenal probably fear City more than United, justifiably so. But come Sunday evening, we'll see. I might just get you back on next Monday just so we can relive all these predictions.
If we slap you, like if it's like a 3-0, 4-0, 4-1, I'm coming back on. Okay. Come back on. If we lose, don't text me.
That's legally binding. Legally binding. Yeah, it's been absolutely great having you, Jordan, because many moons ago, for watchers and listeners' benefit, many moons ago, Jordan got me on his show, the Football Fans Podcast, when I was a fresh-faced Cardiff City reporter, a frustrated Man United fan living down in South Wales. So I got all my vents out about whoever the manager was, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer. At the time. So it's fantastic to come full circle, Jordan.
No, you were a great guest, and thanks for coming on my pods, and thanks for inviting me onto your pods.
Yep, fantastic. You can find Jordan in all those places that I mentioned at the top of the show: TalkSport, Guardian, Channel 4, and maybe name on the trophy again at some point in the future as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You can like and subscribe in all the usual places, and we'll be back again for another episode very soon. Cheers.